In the quiet corners of our minds, where shadows twist and turn, there lies a darkness that many of us refuse to acknowledge. It's a darkness that whispers sweet nothings, seducing us into a false sense of superiority, a false sense of worth. It's the insidious grip of narcissism, that relentless hunger for validation and admiration that often masquerades as confidence. But beneath that polished surface, beneath the facade of self-love, lies a churning sea of hate, jealousy, and emptiness. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, the reflection staring back at you, and instead of seeing a person, you see an image distorted by self-obsession. What do you feel? Do you feel empowered, or do you feel a gnawing emptiness? For many, the answer is a bitter cocktail of both. The world has conditioned us to believe that self-love is the ultimate goal. But what happens when that love morphs into something darker? When it becomes a weapon, a tool for manipulation, and a shield against vulnerability? Narcissism thrives on fear. The fear of inadequacy, the fear of being unseen, the fear of being unworthy. It's a relentless cycle, a hamster wheel of self-doubt and arrogance that keeps spinning faster and faster. In this cycle, we find ourselves trapped, desperate for approval, yet terrified of true intimacy. We surround ourselves with people who feed our ego, who worship the ground we walk on, but in doing so, we create a landscape devoid of genuine connection. We become users, and in our quest for validation, we abuse the very people who once cared for us. And then there's the blame. Oh, the blame. It's a seductive dance, isn't it? When things go wrong, when relationships crumble, it's so easy to point fingers, to cast ourselves as the victim in a world that doesn't understand our brilliance. We become experts at deflecting responsibility, painting ourselves as martyrs in a narrative we've constructed. But in doing so, we trap ourselves in a web of lies, a prison of our own making. We refuse to acknowledge our role in the chaos, our contribution to the pain. Instead, we cling to our victimhood like a lifeline, convinced that if we scream loud enough, someone will come to rescue us from our self-imposed exile. But what else to expect? What other outcomes can we anticipate when we choose to live in this distorted reality? The relationships we build become transactional, devoid of authenticity. We're left with a parade of faces that come and go, each one a fleeting moment of validation that never quite fills the void. We become ghosts in our own lives, drifting from one interaction to another, seeking out the next hit of admiration while drowning in a sea of loneliness. The darkness deepens, and with it, the jealousy festers. We look at those around us, at their successes, their happiness, and we feel that familiar twinge of resentment. How dare they shine when we feel so dim? How dare they seek love when we're drowning in our own despair? That's the cruel irony of narcissism. It blinds us to the beauty of others. It teaches us to see the world through a lens of competition rather than collaboration. We become so consumed by our own narratives that we forget to celebrate the victories of those we claim to love. Instead, we stand on the sidelines, silently seething, convinced that their success somehow diminishes our own worth. And in that jealousy, we find ourselves spiraling deeper into the abyss, further away from the light of connection and compassion. Emptiness becomes our constant companion, a heavy cloak that wraps around us, suffocating and isolating. We fill our lives with distractions, work, social media, superficial relationships, anything to avoid confronting the truth that lies beneath. We become experts at putting on a show, curating our lives for an audience that only sees the surface. But inside, we're screaming, desperate for someone to see the cracks in our armor, to peel back the layers of bravado and reveal the fragile human beneath. And as we navigate this treacherous terrain, we must confront the uncomfortable truth. We are often the architects of our own suffering. We wield our narcissism like a sword, cutting down those who dare to challenge us, those who dare to hold up a mirror to our flaws. We lash out in anger, in fear, blaming others for the chaos we've created. But in doing so, we only deepen our isolation, driving away the very people who could help us heal. So what can we do? How do we break free from this cycle of darkness? It begins with a choice to confront our fears, to embrace vulnerability, and to acknowledge our shortcomings. It's about stepping off the pedestal we've built for ourselves and recognizing that true strength lies not in self-obsession, but in connection. It's about learning to celebrate the successes of others, to find joy in their happiness rather than resentment. It's about seeking help, about allowing ourselves to be seen and heard, and about understanding that we are not alone in our struggles. Narcissism may offer a temporary escape, a fleeting sense of power, but it ultimately leads us to a place of darkness and despair. The journey to self-awareness is not an easy one, but it is a necessary one. It is a journey that requires courage, humility, and a willingness to embrace the uncomfortable. And as we take those first steps into the light, we may just find that the emptiness begins to fade, replaced by a profound sense of connection, compassion, and ultimately, love.